Code Reviews: What, When, and How by D.Closson. In this video presentation, I'm going to provide an overview on the concepts associated with code reviews, which may also be called a peer review or a software inspection. This is generally considered a quality management activity and specifically part of a technical review that would be conducted as an umbrella activity from a generic software process. It can be used with any software development methodology, including waterfall and agile. What is a code review? I'm pretty sure that most of you watching this video have a good idea of what is happening in a code review, but might not be familiar with various goals achieved by code reviews. Let's look at the goals first. Let me first make an effort to define the concept of a code review. Wikipedia and other online sources help me reach a common definition for a code review, which is at the top of the slide. An activity in which one or more people review a software developer's code typically as part of a quality management process. The people reviewing the code are the reviewers, and they may be comprised of different focus areas, such as security or architecture. In Roger Pressman's software engineering text, technical reviews are considered one of the most effective quality filters. The book mostly refers to technical reviews, but this is where a code review might happen. In my web searches, I found that most reports describe code reviews as a good investment of time, and especially those that followed a lightweight process. Code reviews were derived from the software inspection process invented by Michael Fagan while at IBM. We are now going to cover some of the more common goals achieved by code reviews. We will cover each one of these in greater detail on subsequent slides, so don't worry too much about remembering each one, but rather think about the concepts they might represent. The first one is to improve code quality. The second one is to find defects or requirement violations. The third one is to accomplish knowledge transfer. The fourth one is to increase mutual responsibility. The fifth one is for finding better solutions. The last one is compliance with QA standards. The last one could include some of the previous goals, but was initiated to meet an organization or audit standard. These goals are not mutually exclusive, such that some goals could be accomplished as part of another goal. We will look at each one of these with a bit more detail now. First, let's review the goal to improve code quality. Improving code quality certainly makes sense to be a common goal for a code review. This is where everything you learned about refactoring would come into play. We need to ensure the maintainability, readability, and reusability of the code meets our team, project, or organizational goals. An example of this is where a reviewer identifies duplicated code and perhaps suggests some ways to refactor it. Now we have the goal of finding defects or requirement violations. This also makes sense to be a common goal, and likely a critical one, since this is where we would find flaws or bugs in the code which could result in requirement failures, runtime failures, security holes, or even performance issues. An example of this might be a reviewer finding that a function does not properly validate input, which could result in both runtime failures and security problems. This is an important goal of any review process, since it is largely about the correctness of the software. The next goal is knowledge transfer, which makes sense, but is perhaps a little more fuzzy than the first two. Knowledge transfer is a potentially wide range of topics, but the idea here is to review the code to help transfer knowledge about how it works or understanding expectations of quality. An example of this could be a session where a team of developers meets with a support team who will be maintaining the software and needs to understand how it works. The next goal is to increase mutual responsibility. This is an important one from a team mentality and morale perspective. The goal may be accomplished by attending to the other goals, and perhaps the action items that result are not code changes, but process changes. The goal is important for self-organizing agile teams, but really benefits any software development team. One example would be ensuring the team members have a sense of responsibility for all the code rather than just their own. The next goal of finding better solutions is another potentially important goal. This one may have some overlap with the goal of improving code quality, but is at a higher level. The goal is where an entire package or collection of packages does not seem like the best approach by the reviewers, and they want to generate some new ideas on how this might be approached. The example I provided is the code meets the requirements but seems too complex. The idea here is that an approach taken to solve the problem seems off, and we need to consider some new ideas. The next goal is compliance with quality assurance standards. And unlike the previous goals, it does not describe a specific set of outcomes itself. The goal is to cover the projects that may have quality assurance standards that explicitly include code reviews. The actual goals of such required review sessions may include any or all of the previous goals. I provided the example of critical systems that may require a formal code review process. This would be like an air traffic control system. Now, we just referenced the term formal code review, which is a type of code review. We will explain the different types of code reviews later in the How section. Now that we've covered what common goals are achieved with code reviews, you might be wondering, when do code reviews happen? The answer generally depends on the software methodology in use, but each team or project may have special needs or even stakeholder obligations that drive the frequency and nature of any code reviews. This is part of a technical review from a generic process perspective. Okay, so let's pause and think a moment. There is an agile method that uses code reviews as a central part of its development process. Also, waterfall development might include code reviews in which stages? Do you recall either of these? I will give you 10 seconds to pause and think about this, starting now. Okay, so how did you do on the answers? Yes, extreme programming and implementation or verification waterfall stages. When might we code review? This slide presents where code reviews are done in the generic software process on the left, and then more specifically in XP, Scrum, and Waterfall on the right. XP pair programming includes code reviews. Scrum may use this during the sprint when stories are completed, and Waterfall during the implementation or verification stages. I also read that many Agile proponents claim code reviews are key to Agile's working software over comprehensive documentation preference. How is a code review done? Yes, it does involve reviewers looking at code, but there are different types of reviews. Let's take a look at those types. How really depends on what type of code review. So let's see the commonly referenced types I found on Wikipedia and Wikibooks. We will go through the details of each in a moment. The first one is the formal review. The second one is the change-based review. The third one is walkthrough presentations. The fourth one is over the shoulder. The last one is email-based code change notices. All types can benefit from use of a checklist, even if it's a simple one. Now, let's dive into each one of these a bit. We will focus a little more attention to the first two. Let's pause and think again. We already referenced a time when a formal code review might be needed. Do you recall what type of system might need a formal code review? I will give you 5 seconds to pause and think about this, starting now. Okay, so how did you do on the question? Yes, a critical system like air traffic control is the answer, but any project could choose to do a formal code review. First, we have the type called formal reviews. A formal review is usually a thorough review of the code, which may be time and resource intensive, and perhaps part of the reason they are less common. Since formal reviews are thorough, they would cover more work products than just the code. Formal reviews more closely resemble the original software inspection process invented by Michael Fagan. This thorough review process includes formal inspection, formal roles, structured meetings, follow-ups, and documentation activities to uncover defects in documents from various phases of the development process. A formal review would be more likely to occur on a critical system like air traffic control. The next type is a change-based review, which is lightweight and based on changes to the code at regular intervals. This is a common form and often aided by tools to notify and assist the reviewers. Change-based reviews could include some formal process elements like review meetings. A good example of this type of review is GitHub's pull request system, where a developer working from a branch completes a section that they wish to have merged into the main branch. This pull request notifies one or more reviewers. The reviewers then review, comment, approve, and merge it. Of course, they could also comment and reject the pull request. GitHub provides a nice graphical display of the code changes, with many features like commenting on individual line numbers. The three remaining types of code reviews include the more formal walkthrough presentations and two informal methods, over-the-shoulder and email-based code change notices. The walkthrough presentations are a method that is more closely associated with a formal review and involve reviewing code in a presentation format with other developers or stakeholders. I think the over-the-shoulder method is self-explanatory and likely quite common. The email-based code change notices commonly come from a version control system that can send change notifications to one or more watchers of a repository. This concludes the code reviews presentation, but I hope this helped clarify the what, when, and how. I've included the references for those interested. Many thanks for your time and attention.